Do you love this country?
Yeah.
Our country is being destroyed on purpose by someone who's a closet communist.
But does that mean if he committed a
that
crime,
means we're on the edge of civil war? So we better get this country back on track because we're being destroyed.
Tell me about that. Why do you think we're on the brink of civil war?
Because our economy is being driven into the dirt. We have no energy independence. The borders are open. We are being destroyed on purpose by globalist forces that control Joe Biden. China controls Joe Biden. Foreign interests control him. The 1031 just came out today, where Hunter talked to someone who's doing a deal with.
Say that again?
The 1031. It's an FBI document. Came out today, and they were talking about how there's a witness that has recordings of talking to Hunter. Joe Biden received $5 million.
Can I ask you a question? I hear a bit of a double standard here.
Okay.
Wait.
Hit me.
So you just believe, and by the way, I think Hunter Biden should.
Did I read it myself?
One second. I think Hunter Biden should be indicted. So we agree.
Oh,
I think Hillary should have been indicted. So we agree.
Now we talk.
Now, you just believe what you're saying.
Yeah.
Something came out today. I know what you're talking about. They haven't provided the evidence yet.
Yeah.
You just believe that, but when it's flipped around and there's an indictment that comes. Wait.
I'm supposed to get the FBI document in my hand.
No. I'm just
supposed to read it myself.
Let me finish. You believe just because you think Biden is Lucifer, you believe this evidence against Hunter. However, with the indictment, you're saying cockamamie. I don't need to read it. It's all planted.
I'm not. Look, I need if there's recordings, I'd like to hear those tapes.
Yes,
you will.
I would like.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to hear them.
So let me ask you: if during the criminal case, if they have a tape, which is authenticated, that they authenticate that this is Donald Trump, and he's on tape saying, "I want to show you this, but it's classified."
Sure.
And I can't declassify it, which means he had documents.
It's an admission of not being able to.
Which means
it's not
classified documents.
Yeah.
Which legally, whether you agree with the law or not, he's not entitled to have them as a former president.
Yeah.
Do you think he should not be prosecuted, even though that would be a crime, because these other people weren't?
Well, that would be evidence of something he did wrong. I don't think Donald Trump is an infallible creature.
Okay.
I'm not so Donald Trump that I don't think he, as a human being, can do something. We can all do something wrong. That would be not good.
Right.
Not good. That would be evidence of something that's a crime. But do I think that you can take things that are innocuous and shape them in such a way that they build the basis of a case that is supposedly criminal? That the only reason it's criminal is because they've decided to prosecute.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Outta Politics. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ Compton J, or J in real life. This is an interesting clip to start with. By the way, we got Zoya, Apollo, and possibly Kit from Heartlands Media that's going to be joining us in a little bit. So stay tuned. Got a small panel of people that will be joining us. So hit that like button from the start. But this clip, like I said, the G's for my daughter. That's the first letter in her first name. And I'm using her cup. Wife was generous enough to make me some tea during this. I've been having coughing. I have allergies, weather differences change. Give me the sniffles, sneezing, stuff like that. But anyway, I thought this clip was interesting because it illustrates so many things, but from the point of view of Jordan, and he is, I would say, is the representative of the professional managerial class. These are, when they think Trump supporters, this is who they envision. This is who they envision. And this is the boogeyman that they want to create for the left. When we say, hey, these are the workers we need to go after. Now, listen to what the guy's saying. He's in a panic because he's obviously feeling. So let me back up. You have the right wing, the conservatives, who is fear mongering the opposite way. Just like Democrats fearmonger on this side, they fearmonger about a lot of things. I'm not even going to list it. They fearmonger here. They do the same thing over here. So just like all the things that to us seem normal, like everybody's worried about this, that's not what they're worried about. They have a different list of things that they're worried about. Now, some of the stuff may overlap, but because they're being propagandized in a different way, they're being propagandized that, hey, this country is great. Yeah, we've done some bad things, but for the most part, it's a great country. It's filled with freedom, and that's what we aspire to be. Then these people, poor working class whites, can't find a job, just like black and brown people in urban areas can't find decent work. The schools are falling apart. Cities are falling apart. Infrastructures falling apart. And then when they look to the people who is propagandizing them, they're saying it's the immigrants. You see why he thinks that? But I love what Cornel West is talking about, what he wants to do, which is he wants to go and talk to these people because they have been misinformed, just like the people on the blue side have been misinformed. They've been misinformed. But the professional managerial class in Jordan, who Jordan represents here, wants all of us to believe that these people cannot be reached, cannot be talked to, cannot be reasoned with. Now, there's a certain segment, I'm sure, and that's who they always want to point to. Boogaloo Boys, Proud Boys. Okay, what about the millions of people, though? There's not millions of Boogaloo Boys. There's not millions of Proud Boys, though. So this is the fight. So when they watch this, the professional managerial class is looking at, oh, look, see, this is what we do. Look how stupid they are. Look at. That's the point of view. I do see Zoya, so I'm going to bring Zoya in. Oh, actually, let me see if she said something here. Okay, so Zoya is ready to go. Before I give her the proper introduction, let me just do a couple of shout outs so I can go from her introduction to some of the back into the topic here, because I do want to get her take on this. So first thing, join our Substack. We have these highs and lows, and right now we're on a high where we're getting a lot of people that is subscribing right now. So make sure you're on our Substack. This is the way you get on our mailing list. And simply on our mailing list, there's about 2 emails we send a day, unless there's a special occasion. One contains all of our clips, and the other contains like whatever the live stream is that day. Now, if there's multiple live streams, that's when you'll get more emails. One for clips, and then one for each live stream. I should say it that way. The other thing for new members or new subscribers, we have YouTube memberships, and it gives you a couple little perks in the chat if you do become a member. The other thing I wanted to mention is, hit that like button. We're at 160 people watching right now. So let's target 125 likes. So if we can get to 125 likes, that would be great. We'll get to some comments after I bring in Zoya. And last but certainly not least, before I bring in Zoya, here are the topics that I kind of want to get to today. We'll see which ones I'm able to get to. No particular order, but participating in the so actually, let me go over the graphic. Let me explain that. The graphic is based on a tweet that I put out today, and where I'm basically saying now is the time that the left, really just people in general, Americans in general, you have a choice. Actually, the left, since I have left figures on here, you have the choice on the right, 2 paths. You can go the way of the Democratic Party, or you can go left, the way of radicals, the way of supporting Palestinians, the way of abolishing the police state. There's 2 paths. And right now, there's too many people thinking we can be in both lanes, and we cannot. We're at a crossroads here with Cornel West's candidacy. We're at a crossroads. Either we're going to build up a third party over several years, or we're going to continue bullshitting with the Democratic Party. So that's the main topic. And then we're also going to cover China welcomes Palestinian president. So there's a lot to talk about on there. And then U.S. sends radioactive depleted uranium to Ukraine. And then let me see what the other stories are here. I want to get to the other stories. I want to get to, if we're able to get to them. Jailing political opponents. I got some updates on the Trump indictment. I kind of want to talk about that. We're going to be talking about China and Palestine. And we also going to be talking, there's another story of an elderly man who was taken into custody by the Palestinian authorities. He died of a heart attack because they gagged him or something and put blindfold and handcuffed him, and he died. And word came out that, or the decision came out that the officers who and they left him. They did all that and they just left him wherever he was, and he died of a heart attack. They won't have any charges filed against him. So hopefully we're able to get to that story too. So now I can give the proper introduction to Zoya Is Love, one of the honorary sort of R&B. I said R&B members, as Nick refers to, along with Comrade Misty. This is Zoya. Zoya's Love. What's up, Zoya?
Hello, CJ. Hello, RBN fam. So happy to be joining you. I'm at school teaching, so I'm doing the podcast between teaching classes.
Wow, look at that. So, when of course, whenever you got to check out, this is real free flowing. Kit is going to be jumping in a little late. Apollo will be jumping in. I think I didn't read the text. I think he just sent the text. I got to read. But I do want to show you something, Zoya. There's going to be a lot of different topics and just kind of getting reactions here. This video I do want to play again, and just to get your reaction, or whatever it is, whether it's your opinion about the Trump supporter or Jordan's questioning or just the whole dynamic. But let's listen and then let Zoya react.
So, do you love this country? Yeah. Our country is being destroyed on purpose by someone who's a closet communist.
But does that mean if he committed a
that
crime,
means we're on the edge of civil war? So we better get this country back on track, because we're being destroyed.
Tell me about that. Why do you think we're on the brink of civil war?
Because our economy is being driven into the dirt. We have no energy independence. The borders are open. We are being destroyed on purpose by globalist forces that control Joe Biden. China controls Joe Biden. Foreign interests control him.
Where do you think he's getting this information that he has from? Like, that was a lot that he said there, Zoya. And I've heard it. It sounds similar to maybe the Great Reset or something similar to it. But like, what? This is where I want to pause it here because I want to get your reaction. What do you think? What is your reaction? I'll just leave it more open. What is your reaction to what you're hearing this Trump supporter sort of ramble off this list of things? What do you think about that?
Well, I definitely have no clue where they get the information that they get. I mean, obviously, it's anywhere between Fox News, OAN, and QAnon. So I don't know how far he is into the conspiracies, but he's not wrong about the economic struggle. And just on a human level, I really feel his pain, even though his Trump t-shirt is very distracting. But if I was just hearing a lot of what he was saying without that t-shirt, without knowing his political affiliation, he's a working class man that's clearly struggling and frustrated and desperate. And how many times have we seen fascism come in when people are desperate and communism is being suppressed? And we're living through that right now. Even in right before World War II in Germany, the Communist Party had one of the strongest organizational ground games there, but fascism came in instead. So it just emphasizes for me, again, the importance to fill this vacuum with our messaging, with our policy stances, with our revolutionary ideas, because if we don't, then fascist ideas will come in and people will be desperate enough to listen.
And that's why we have no illusions about what the Cornel West candidacy may or may not do, so we don't want to do that. But that's why I like some of the things that what he's saying, specifically when he says I'm going to Trump country. Like that specific part, I think that's what breeds a lot of fear to in his candidacy from the establishment, is that, wow, there's a candidate that's actually going to go after Trump supporters, and they're going to begin to break down the wall, or he's going to begin to break down the wall that we've built up of propaganda between these two groups. They're going to actually talk. To your point, go ahead.
Yes, that is so exciting. That is one of the things that makes me the happiest about Dr. West running, and in his interview, just his entire approach. Even when he was talking about Palestinians and Israelis, and in general, to start seeing each other as human beings. Because part of what the system does is dehumanize all of us. And that's how they get the proletariat to turn on each other. So, of course, a revolutionary act is loving each other, trying to understand each other. Of course, people have to be deprogrammed. Right now, people are very tribalized and they act like they're in a cult. It's not logical, rational thinking, but people have been deprogrammed from cult mentalities. It doesn't make them bad people. I've met and I'm a refugee to this country. I've met horribly xenophobic people that were absolutely atrocious to me. And yet they're good in other aspects of their life. Maybe they're a good husband or a good friend or a good brother. But that just happens to be their upbringing and what they were taught at home, at school. So they absorb this in their surroundings. And for those people that don't know, I'm from the USSR. And when I was there, Ukrainians and Russians lived peacefully side by side for nearly a century, intermarried, had friendships. But look at how the CIA has done this globally, but how they came into a region and exploited old tensions, fanned the flames of nationality and extremism, and this kind of destabilizing things we've seen them do in Iraq between Sunnis and Shiites. We're seeing that between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So this is not a new thing where the ruling classes benefit from dividing us, and it's unfortunately entirely too easy to get people to turn on each other. And part of the healing work is love. And I know that it's been turned into this like cartoonish thing, like, oh, love, schmub, get out of here with that tree hugging stuff. But if we actually study history, it was Che Guevara's birthday yesterday. And one of his famous quotes, I might butcher it a little bit, but he said, at risk of sounding foolish, the great revolutionary is guided by a strong feeling of love. It's not verbatim, but that is basically what he said.
That's pretty close. That's pretty close. I remember the quote. Yeah.
And he used to be a doctor that was helping the poor before he turned into a revolutionary. And it doesn't make him a flawless person. Every person we study, every person that we might look up to, they are flawed human beings. And I'm a flawed human being. I think we're all extremely flawed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But overall, we're taught that our nature is not goodness. And I disagree with that. And this is where, I just love Dr. West, because I think actually we are by nature really unity creatures, and that we want to cooperate, not compete. And we see cooperation in nature, and we see cooperation in indigenous communities, and that kind of connection to each other. Yeah, sorry, CJ. That kind of connection.
No, I was just saying kids. Saying kids is another example of what you're saying. Just look to kids. You can see that is how it's supposed to be. Kids, literally, when I take my small daughter anywhere, there's a place, it's like, I'm gonna go find a friend. That's what she says. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like an automatic thing that we are programmed out of. To your point, sorry for that. Continue, Zoya.
Yeah, no, and to that point, which is an excellent point. I'm talking to you guys live from a school right now, grades 1 through 12. I work with children, and I've said it on RBN before. Not one of them is a racist yet. Not one of them is xenophobic yet. But I'm here and I watch them grow because they typically stay here throughout their entire education, and I hear them start repeating things they don't even understand from home, from their parents, from the news. There's kids on their devices listening to Fox News and all this stuff. They'll run through the hall and they'll say like Biden is a communist, and just repeat stuff that they're absorbing from their environment. And they're good kids. They're good-hearted. They're good to each other, but they're the products of their environment. So at some point, we've got to ditch this punitive mentality, which I'm also an abolitionist. And we have to outreach to people. We have to give them a chance. It does not mean to put yourself in danger, because that's always the counter argument. I'm not going to endanger myself. Not everybody is a full-fledged Nazi. Very few people are actual extremists, but they might have conservative beliefs or very hateful beliefs. But that's the kind of thing, and we've seen evidence for that in history, where outreach is really the cure to this kind of ignorance. And I always love giving the example. There was enemies.
Oh, I think your sound kind of went out, Zoya. Let's see.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you, and I can hear you now. And now let's actually insert Jay also. So he can hear what you're saying here. Jay is in the back. Here goes Jay or Apollo. Welcome, Jay. We wanted to insert you here with Zoya's making this point that she's making now, so you can comment. But what's up, Jay?
How's it going? I'm doing well. I actually just got out of an interview, so I was running a little late today. But thanks for having me.
No worries. All right, Zoya, go ahead.
Funny fact for the revolutionary blackout community: Jay is talking to you guys from my house. He's at my house right now.
It's funny how the first time you have Zoya's house in the background is not on Zoya's screen, it's on my screen. So,
yeah, so at least we know her internet's pretty good. It's carrying 2 streaming, so that's good.
I'm at work.
Cool.
He's at my house.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. Right on. Okay. Yeah. All right. So sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Your sound did go out a little bit wherever that last point you were making, Zoya.
So basically, just the example from history of the Hollywood movie that was made, Best of Enemies, about a black activist, Ann Atwater, and C.P. Elliott, a Ku Klux Klan president of his local chapter, and avowed racist. He wore the hood, he terrorized people, did horrible things. And then they were trying to integrate schools. So as part of the process, they hosted a charrette where they elected leaders from both communities to have this debate. And then the community was supposed to vote if they're going to integrate the schools. And Ann Atwater and C.P. Ellis obviously started as enemies, and they actually had a previous history where I believe she tried to stab him at a city council meeting. So you know how much these people hated each other. But through these 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, guys, they realized that they could reach so many people, and C.P. Elliott ended up coming to Ann Waters' side, voting to integrate the schools, denouncing the KKK, completely resigning. And this is back in those days. He paid the price for that. This isn't just as easy as claiming a stance. but he did it anyways, and he joined her in her activism for Black issues, and then they would tour the country and universities to talk about their friendship and this solidarity and the commonality that they realize that they have in their working class struggle, that they're facing many of the same issues. So it is possible. It is possible. We just in America, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be insulting to anyone, but my experience is that we just analyze things in an infantilized kind of way, and through that, we just put people into boxes of good and bad when it's always more nuanced. People are multifaceted. People are more complex than that, and we got to give people a chance. It's so easy to just label someone something and start hating on them and start denouncing them, and I'm sure there's a satisfaction to that. Look at all of the rage that people express online, just coming at each other and things that they would never say in person. But the effort is worth it. You're not going to reach everybody. You definitely should never put yourself in harm's way, because I really hear that counter argument all the time that you're asking me to be in danger. No, I'm not. I'm asking you not to stand in my way while I do this work. And if you care to join me, then please do. But ultimately, we're a human family. And if we realize that we're a human family, think of how many of the problems that we have today we wouldn't, because we would all be united in solidarity, and these people could never rule us.
Like it would never happen. And Jay, I don't know how much you heard, so I'm on the video I played, so I'm gonna play the last 10 seconds again, just so get the gist. But we're listening to Jordan Sheridan out talking to Trump supporters, and it's about one of the first brief stories I want to cover, which is just an update on the Trump indictment. So I guess they are against him being indicted, and let's take it from that point. And so yeah.
So,
do you love this country? Yeah. Our country is being destroyed on purpose by someone who's a closet communist.
But does that mean if he commits
that part? That's just clearly he doesn't know what a communist is. But think about what I was saying earlier, like who is telling him that Joe Biden is a communist? And Zoya mentioned it earlier. Is it Fox News? Is it QAnon? That is completely skewing the understanding of communism, just so they can sort of create this sort of hype about it. So let me play a little more, and then I'll get your comment, Jay. So 1 second.
That means we're on the edge of civil war. So we better get this country back on track, because we're being destroyed.
Tell me about that. Why do you think we're on the brink of civil war?
Because our economy is being driven into the dirt. We have no energy independence. The borders are open. We are being destroyed on purpose by globalist forces that control Joe Biden. China controls Joe Biden. Foreign interests control him. The 1031 just came out today, where Hunter talked to someone who's doing a deal with.
Say that again,
the 1031. It's an FBI document. Came out today, and they were talking about how there's a witness that has recordings of talking to Hunter. Joe Biden.
So he's basically doing what they've been doing on corporate media and a lot of the elected Republicans. And I can take it off. And he's basically saying, this is not an even-handed indictment, because there's other people on the other side that should be indicted. But what Zoya and I were more focusing on is the pain and the hurt, and you can tell what he's saying, which is what we want to tap into. But for however you want to comment, whatever aspect of it you want to chime in on. But what are your thoughts on the video or what Zoya and I have been discussing?
Yeah, I mean, so just you can tell by the words that he uses that where his source of news comes from. It probably is like what you guys mentioned, Fox News or OAN. But the reason that propaganda works is because there are problems that are going on in this country. They're just playing it on the wrong scapegoats. He mentioned the borders, so he's obviously blaming it on undocumented immigrants and whatnot. But this is and I think Zoe was definitely touching upon this earlier. Like, this guy is definitely reachable. He just needs better source of information, I guess. He just needs to be de-propagandized. But he's definitely someone who, on some level, you could reach in some capacity or the other. Ever since the outbreak of this Russia-Ukraine war started, there's so many right wingers that actually are very fervently anti-NATO and anti-imperialism, anti-war. It shocked me when I found that out. So like that's another area we could probably find some sort of common ground, you know, because and I love how Jimmy Dore says this. He's like, okay, here's a bunch of people at an event. Okay, who is who doesn't support X? All right, get the fuck out. Who doesn't support policy Y? Get the fuck out. Who doesn't support some other third shit? But like the point was like sooner like people try to do a purity thing. They sift people further and further out until we have just a very tiny group of people that align with us. At which point we're just in an echo chamber. This is a country of 330 million people. We're not going to find people that are going to agree with us 100% of the time. We're almost never going to do that. So,
and it feels like we have to create the space for people to feel comfortable again to disagree, and it's very hard in our leftist space for people to accept that. And we accept it in our work in other aspects. It's so weird how we don't. It's like, do you not think you're at your job, you don't think you mingle with a Trump supporter? You don't think you mingle with somebody who's against abortion? You don't think you mingle with somebody who is either an atheist if you're not an atheist, or who is Christian if you are like, it just is bizarre. In politics, we want to be 100% pure, and that's only people we're going to associate with. We have to be okay with people being different. There is a core understanding that makes you left. There's a core understanding, I guess, that will make you conservative, but that doesn't mean each issue you're going to agree on. That's my take on.
Yeah, and also like give people a chance to actually learn and grow, because like 10 years ago I was almost unrecognizable. I like a lot of people probably just like disavow me that I was
You're almost ashamed to say.
Yeah,
we all were there at some. Well, I'm not gonna say we are. I don't know if Zoya has ever been there, but I was there too. I was there.
I mean, people know my history. Like, I mean, some of you guys do.
In this country, I'm mortified here. Jay's parents, Jay and I are obviously friends, and we have these conversations for hours, like all the time. His parents, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Jay, are Trump supporters, and so are a lot of immigrants that are doing well.
Yes,
a lot of
I
them
noticed that here.
Yeah, so he's coming out of this conservative space. Look at where Jay is now, and only a few years ago he was working on AOC's campaign. So I know that Nick has shifted left a lot in recent years as well. I've watched a lot of people. Yeah, so if we ourselves are learning and growing all the time, how can we not give that opportunity to other people? It's just not an activist mindset. It just isn't, because the activist mindset is to reach out to proletariat. It's exactly what Lenin spoke about. Lenin said for us not to condescend. And at the time, he was talking about outreach to people who are illiterate. So you can't be on your high horse screaming, read theory, because these people can't. But he said to go into these communities and not to lecture people, but to lead by example, but by showing them communism in practice, how it works, how it serves them, to convince them through action, not through bullying, and that's what I mean by, in general, in America, the discourse, and believe me, this is by design. All of you were robbed of an education. I had plenty of education abroad, and let me tell you, we were doing algebra in first grade. You guys do not even know what your potential is, because this country is not trying to bring your potential out. Like George Carlin was saying, they need you just smart enough to run the machines and just dumb enough not to know what's happening. So the analysis in this country is very infantilized, and we just don't have it in us to understand the value of education, the value of allowing people to grow. And I don't know how that's consistent, because I'm sure many of you in the audience have also shifted left throughout your life.
Yeah.
And if somebody gave you that opportunity, how can you possibly deny it to others? Why is it more important to, I mean, I get it. We're all hurting. Like inflation's crazy. Buying food right now is hard. Putting gas in the car right now. I hear you guys. We are hurting, but we have to be careful not to just project that pain out into the world. We have to transmute the pain into energy that will actually solve these problems, because otherwise we're just creating more pain in the world, and we're all traumatizing each other further when the system already does enough of that.
That is such a great point. Let's play this clip. It furthers the point. It furthers the topic we're on, which is sort of just Trump country, Trump supporters, and Trump indictment. This is somebody clip. Let me just play the clip, and then I can comment after.
Today we witnessed the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country. Very sad thing to watch. A corrupt sitting president had his top political opponent arrested on fake and fabricated charges of which he and numerous other presidents would be guilty, right in the middle of a presidential election in which he is losing very badly. This is called election interference, and yet another attempt to rig and steal a presidential election. More importantly, it's a political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or communist nation. This day will go down in infamy, and Joe Biden will forever be remembered as not only the most corrupt president in the history of our country, but perhaps even more importantly, the president who, together with a band of his closest thugs, misfits, and Marxists, tried to destroy
Did you hear that?
American democracy.
You notice they have to insert communist, even if it's we have nothing to do with it. They have to always fear mongering against communism. It's so in their DNA to do, which is hilarious to me. But let's finish the clip, and then I have an article from Margaret Kimberly to kind of read a couple of paragraphs here, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
So, boy, when he's right, huh? And boy, is he right. He is right, and that is exactly what's happening. And this is unprecedented, because they said that if Trump did this to his opponents, it would be the end of democracy. Well, they're doing it to their political opponents. So this is the thing that everyone's supposed to be. Remember January 6th, everybody's, democracy, democracy, democracy. Well, it's over. Trump is 100% right. Joe Biden is doing things that third world dictators do. And they're the one doing, they said Trump was going to do this. They said Trump was going to lock up his political opponents when he became president. And now that's what Joe Biden's doing when Joe Biden's losing an election to him. He had one more thing to say about the deep state. Watch this. He's not fucking around Trump anymore. Watch this.
When I'm reelected, and we will get reelected, we have no choice. We're not going to have a country anymore. I will totally obliterate the deep state. We will obliterate the deep state. And we know who they are. I know exactly who they are.
So, of course, Trump is playing into it. But let me get your both of your reaction to the video, to that last video with Jimmy Dore. Because I covered this indictment. To me, it's not whether or not he's guilty or not. It's why is this a sort of a jailing of political opponents, which is fascism. So what was your reaction to this, or what is your reaction, Apollo? Let's start with you first, and then go to Zoya, to this last video with Jimmy.
Before I get into that, I just wanted to mention something about the previous topic real quick.
Sure.
Back in 2016, Trump got like 60 million or something votes. 9.8 million of those were former two-time Obama voters. So 1 in 6 Trump voters were former two-time Obama voters. And Obama, I can't remember this now. I was too young in 2008, but he ran from what I understand, a pretty progressive lefty kind of campaign. Yeah. So people that voted for him ended up voting for Trump. So there's definitely room for crossover, lots of room to build a better working class coalition. You don't need to alienate these people. Yeah, I just want to say that real quick. But about this video here, Trump is repeating a lot of same things that he said back in 2016. I'm going to go after the deep state. I'm going after the Pentagon, where he said one thing, but he did another in office. Right. So I don't really put too much value into what he says, but it is worth noting how receptive people are to that message. Even if, unfortunately, people have short-term memory, if they're receptive to that message, they know something is wrong with those very same institutions that Trump's criticizing, if that message resonates. And to what Jimmy said, yeah, this is one-sided. This is asymmetric. I mean, there is definitely something you could prosecute Trump for. There's something you can prosecute every single president for. But the fact that it's in one direction against a political opponent, there's like a million things you go after Joe Biden for, or Barack Obama, or George Bush, or name any president for that matter. Yeah, the fact that we're not going after them, we're only going after Trump, we're only going after not even Republicans, but Trump specifically. If this was George Bush, like nobody would even think about going after him. Like people are rehabilitating him. Democrat, I think at one point Democrats gave George Bush a 61% approval rating in the Trump years because they took Trump and vilified him to hell, and like the propaganda worked and started making George Bush look good. But yeah, it is definitely political. Like it 100% is political. It's one-sided, and if Trump did it, all hell would break loose in the liberal class. So that's why I just don't pay attention to this, because it's all political theater, and it's not really solving any real issues. It's I just sort of zone it out when it happens, because it's one-sided, and it's and a lot of times it's just a cover for burying the more important stories that people should be hearing about.
Do you think, like, I'm not sure what, like, a conviction wouldn't even prevent him from running for president, or maybe it would, or maybe they're trying to get him to plead to that. I just don't understand. Yeah, go speak to that if you heard something about that.
I heard both, actually, like that the conviction would actually stop him from running, and I heard that from like Republicans, like his former aides and staffers. Douglas McGregor was, I think, somebody in his Defense Department. Yeah, he has actually pretty good takes on NATO expansion and imperialism, but he is a typical Republican. So when he drops the ball hard. But he was the one that said that, that if he is indicted, Trump will not be able to run. So I don't know. I've heard both sides of it. But ultimately, regardless of whether or not Trump becomes president, I don't think we're gonna see any meaningful change in any kind of policy whatsoever.
No, not at all. But the people who we showed, and I'll go to Zoya now, the people who we showed in the video with Jordan are the people who eat what he's saying up right here. Yeah. And he knows he's speaking specifically to those people who are in that pain from these trade deals of sending manufacturing jobs overseas, that he knows that. And that's so when he says deep state, that's why that guy in that earlier video was kind of alluding to that. But Zoya, what say you? What's your reaction to all this?
Well, to me, this is all like analyzing a Marvel movie. Here's the villain that we got, and for the other side, Biden's the villain. We all it's also like a sporting event, and I've said it's the modern Coliseum to distract the masses from their material conditions. And we all have our favorites, that we're cheering for. But at the same time, under every single administration, blue or red, the wealth gap has increased and war has increased. The military-industrial complex and Wall Street win every single election. So no matter which puppet they present in front of us, and this, hostility they express to each other, even Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy, at the end of the day, they're, just like George Carlin said, it's a big club and you're not in it. And that is absolutely true, because their kids go to the same private schools. You can find pictures online right now of Nancy Pelosi's kids partying it up with Trump's kids. These people in public pretend like they have this epic battle and hate each other so much. But believe me, they are all living lifestyles of privilege, and that unites them. They are all very comfortable. And us, the working class, we're not letting our struggles unite us. That does not mean we have to be single-minded and we have to agree on every single issue. But Nick will tell you, and he's mentioned it before, canvassing, that right-wingers were actually easier to flip, and my experience too, the liberals, because they are open to the fact that the government is corrupt. You just got to give them more facts and information, and then they're open-minded. They like authentic conversation, and you programming. And another really uniting issue for everyone, believe it or not, is environmentalism, not climate change, but specifically like having clean water. Like having clean water should be a uniting issue for all of us, no matter where else you stand. And that should be something really easy. But we're too consumed by these kind of nationwide electoral races to focus on the issues. And whenever we are trying to garner support, I was talking about Cop City before it was cool. I talked about Cop City on RBN when no one ever heard of it, no one paid attention to it. And whenever I would tweet about it, it would barely get any likes. And now it's on the national stage. Now people are paying attention thanks to the hard work of our brothers and sisters on the front lines, putting their bodies in danger and some of them losing their lives to bring that attention. But it's on us to ignore this noise and focus on the things that really matter, because Trump has this appeal using a populist message, and Bernie had his appeal using a populist message. But unfortunately, none of them led workers to where they need to be, led the American majority to where they need to be in labor organizing, in getting to a general strike, in improving our material conditions. These elections are a massive distraction to me. And Trump is supposed to trigger you, and Biden is supposed to trigger them. This is designed to manipulate our emotions. And I'll share a little just funny thing for you guys. A couple of years ago, I was curious. I was triggered by Trump getting elected myself, even though I know better. But as a sexual assault survivor, when he nominated Kavanaugh and the way that his accuser was being treated, the rhetoric that was used, it's very triggering for all survivors, just the way rape is discussed in general. And that's when I joined Twitter. I joined Twitter to start screaming at politicians. And I was tagging all of them and saying, like, you better not confirm this guy. That's where I started off at. And then I did a little experiment with myself. For a long amount of time, I don't remember how long it was, but I think it was like a couple of months, I watched only Fox News. And then I switched and I watched only CNN. And I observed myself getting sucked into the rhetoric, getting triggered emotionally, becoming really single-minded, and just, rooting for one side or the other, because the way they present things, it's like, oh my God, these guys are doing this. That's outrageous. Either channel, either side. So I noticed myself being psychologically manipulated by this stuff. Entertainment is America's #1 export.
Yes.
Which really is propaganda, because that's what our entertainment is. And we don't really have news. We don't have anything journalistic to watch on TV. They're just playing on your emotions. And no one's fact checking them, and they can get away with saying anything. And just like Rachel Maddow, she is technically an entertainer. But because she puts on a certain suit and has a certain background, psychologically, when we're watching that, we assume it's fact. Like CJ, you've mentioned your mom, when she's watching the TV, she assumes that is journalism. She doesn't understand manipulation and sensationalism, and nor should she. And most Americans just don't have the time to research the things that we do independently and to figure out and see through the veil of propaganda that we're all being screwed. And we are all being screwed. All of us. And I saw someone in the chat saying that they are hurting, but they're not hurting as much as us. I don't know about that. I could say about CP Ellis, maybe CP Ellis was not hurting as much as Ann Atwater. Maybe not, but why do we have to compete and measure who's suffering the most? They are suffering is a fact. And what they don't fundamentally understand about phrases like none of us are free until all of us are free is that society the way we treat the most marginalized amongst us reflects our moral compass, reflects who we are. And if we fight for the most oppressed, that guarantees a domino effect for everybody else. Because if we liberate those communities, we liberate the rest of us. People are so worried about getting their piece of the pie, they don't understand the whole pie belongs to all of us. We do not need to be competing. If someone is slower than you, you reach out a hand and help them get up. But this society rewards us being the person in front and makes us think in ways that ignores the person behind us. And that is not a family. That is not how you design society. We still have to share, like all of these middle class people I encounter now, and I mean upper middle class, they definitely would be in the 1%. They complain to me about, all these homeless people now at their houses, and they're like, they know where I stand on defunding the police and everything, but they're like, but what do I do? This homeless guy was trying to break into my house. I felt like I'm in danger. And I can understand that from a human perspective, that this person feels like he's in danger. He has little kids at home and he doesn't know what to do. And he said actually calling the police didn't even do anything. They didn't show up. They didn't help in any ways, which, by the way, I was like, yeah, that's exactly why we should defund them. Because that money and just help that person, whether it's a mental health issue or employment or housing, if we invested that money into actually helping people that we do share space with, whether you like it or not, then you wouldn't be having these issues. So we cannot stay in this survival mindset of I'm just going to be an individual and care about myself, because it's ignorant. Because we are all living around each other. We do all interact. And if someone's hurting, that pain's going to come to you one way or the other.
It's going to come in a package that you call crime, or it might come in a package that you call mental breakdown or some sort of mental issue, or many other different expressions that sort of pain can produce. And this is all put on by capitalists because it only helps them. It only serves capital if we're not working together. It only serves capital. But let me read this part, this article, or part of this article from Margaret Kimberly. She's been one of the people in media that's analyzing this indictment, to me, from sort of a class perspective. So let's read and see what she says. This was written yesterday. I don't think I'm going to blow it up. Just going to read a couple of paragraphs here. Trump indictments subvert the legal and political system. The recent indictments of former President Donald Trump are political acts intended to keep him from becoming president again. But the impacts of dubious legal proceedings should be of greater concern than helping the Democrats achieve electoral victories that rarely benefit the people. And that is essentially the point that, I expressed in the segment that I did on this indictment, is that, but anyway, let me read more before I give my opinion. Maybe I cannot blow it up that big. Let's see. Quote, do they consider as part of a political plea offer something that would be proscribe him from running for office again? I don't know. End quote. Quote again. I would imagine if anything like that happened, that it would have to come from the defense side of the negotiations. That the Trump team would say, oh, by the way, and with this, we will also, drop out of the race for president, end quote. This clip I played in that segment. It's funny that she's pulling that. But this clip this is a conversation between Rachel Maddow and Loris O'Donnell, and maybe I'll find it and bring it up. This is the exchange where Rachel Maddow says the quiet thing out loud and said, what if we can do a plea agreement where he has to agree not to run for president? And then the next day, she did a longer segment on her show, and it was showing, and she used Agnew, I forget his first name, the vice president of Nixon, and how he agreed not to run for any political office again in exchange for them being only having to plead to one charge, which to me speaks to what this is really about. And Loris O'Donnell was trying to clean it up by saying, well, hold on, that needs to come from the defense, because it couldn't come from the state, because then that would prove what Trump is saying. So I will find that clip to give you guys context on it. But let me read a little more of what Margaret says. Donald Trump once again. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just in the comment section, since you brought up Nixon. Violin said, Nixon was our last liberal president. That's a quote from Ralph Nader.
Yes.
And I just want to point out the fact that Nixon is to the left of Biden. I mean, that's how far the Overton window has shifted. And Nixon, in case you guys didn't know, the president has the authority to freeze prices. So Nixon actually did this, and you can go look it up. He froze prices because inflation was skyrocketing. So at that time, he knew that workers have solidarity and they are not going to tolerate this, and he had to take action. And now Biden pretends and supporters as well, like there's nothing he could do. Like he just has no power. He's just sitting back, this victim of the Republicans. He could absolutely intervene right now. Our food prices could have been frozen a year ago. Gas prices could have been frozen a year ago. These companies are price gouging us. This is not organic. So I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. Now I did find the clip, so let me insert that, because I feel like my description of it wasn't adequate or didn't give you the appropriate picture. So it's a very short clip, less than a minute and a half, but this is the exchange that's described in the article, and then we'll get back to the article in just a second. Right here.
You have to wonder if the Justice Department is considering whether there is some political solution to this criminal problem, whether part of the issue here is not just that Trump has committed crimes, but that Trump has committed crimes and plans on being back in the White House. Do they consider, as part of a potential plea offer, something that would proscribe him from running for office again? I don't know.
I would imagine if anything like that happened, that it would have to come from the defense side of the negotiation, that the Trump team would say, oh, by the way, and with this, we will also, drop out of the race for president. Otherwise, it would put the Justice Department in this position that Donald Trump claims they're in. He claims they're trying to stop him, simply trying to stop him from becoming president again. And that's the only reason they're doing this. So my guess, given those dynamics and the change, I think, in the way the Justice Department sees this in those 50 years since Spiro Agnew, it just seems unlikely that they would reach into the political zone of the solution. Our politics does have to find a solution to this, but it might have to find that solution separate and apart from the criminal process.
You see how Lawrence, he had to clean it up. He was like, hold on, Rachel, let me clean this up now. We've been putting on this whole show that this is not a political thing, so we can't do that, Rachel. That's sort of what she's saying. But any reaction before we move to the last segment, or the main segment? And I did see that you have to go do something, Zoya. So go ahead if you had a reaction, Jay, and if Zoya, you're back, you can also chime in on that video before I read this last part from the article.
Yeah, so I don't know how much you guys remember now, but back in 2016, Trump said so many things which just gave away that he was saying the quiet part out loud. At one point in the debate, he basically pointed to his fellow Republican debate primary people. He was like, these guys are corrupt. I know, because I fucking gave them money in the first place. And some dumbasses were stupid enough to say, oh, yeah, you gave me money. Give me some more. If you could do that, that'll be great. I'm like, I don't know if they set up a trap on purpose or not, but he literally got them to admit it, either on purpose or by accident that they literally took his money. And it wasn't just Republicans; it was Democrats too. Kamala Harris, back when she was running for AG, he gave her, I think, I don't know how much, but he contributed to her campaign for AG. He contributed to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. So, and like Zoe mentioned earlier, you have pictures of Pelosi's kids and Trump's kids partying up together at Mar-a-Lago during New Year's Eve and other kinds of celebrations. So, my whole point with this is like, Trump has bought enough people off to the point where he's going to be fine. Nothing's really going to ever happen to him. Like, he's made sure of that himself. He's put in like more federal court judges than any other president before him. I think Biden might have outdone him though, but more judges than any court before him. So, he's saved his ass. Like, he's donated to enough people. He has bribed enough people. He's put enough judges in high places. He saved his ass. So like, my whole reaction to that is that it's all political theaters. Nothing's gonna happen to him. It's all designed.
Yeah, because the judge that's presiding, the one who's assigned the case, is a Trump appointee. One of the 200 and some odd judges that he got through. She's one of them. She's actually one of them.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So yeah, I won't do this. I'll do this later. But Rachel Maddow's fill-in, her name is Alex Wagner. She covered this. She is now going after the judge, and she's saying, look how this judge doesn't have any experience. She doesn't really have any experience, and she's taking on this case because they're afraid. And Zoya, you're back. I can bring you in. If they're afraid that this judge may push the case beyond the election. And that to them is the number one thing that cannot happen, which is such a tell. It's such a tell that you got to have the case before the trial. Why do you got to do that? Oh, it's because you want to prevent him from getting there. Now, Zoya, are you back? If you are, you can chime in before we go to the main topic here. She may not be.
I'm listening, right. But I'm feeding the kids grapes right now. Give me just one.
Okay.
minute.
Yeah, no worries. So then let's bring in the next topic here. I think we can close this one about Trump. It actually went longer than planned. Now let's get into the main topic here. An hour in. I don't want to go too long before we get to the main topic. So let's get to the main topic. And the main topic is, and I showed everybody the graphic, is here. I feel like we're at a crossroads. We're either picking the side with Bernie, Maxwell Frost, and AOC, or you're picking the path of Cornel West, Shama Sawant, and Chris Hedges, and you can't be in both camps. Like, there's been so many times where it's, previous to now, we can do both. And my tweet speaks to how it's my opinion we can't do both. This whole 1 foot in, 1 foot out is something that's preventing us from building anything meaningful outside of the two corporate corrupt parties. And so let's read. This is the tweet. The time is now to make a complete break from the Democratic Party. And that means no more 1 foot in, 1 foot out. No, we can't do both. Working class energy must be put into one singular task, and that's to remove itself from these two capitalist parties. The professional managerial class has the time and energy to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Working class people and the poor do not. And let me zero in on this part of we can't do both, because this is the thing we hear a lot. Well, we got to put our, do everything, put all the eggs in the basket to kind of combat everything. But what in the political realm, what doing, 1 foot in, 1 foot out is what I call it. 1 foot in the Democratic Party, 1 foot out in the Green Party, or 1 foot out in non-establishment. It doesn't allow you. It's like both things are inadequate. You're dividing your time. So what you're providing is just, inadequate to actually accomplish anything. And think about that. Even with the Democratic Party, what they're doing now is inadequate. What the squad is doing now is inadequate to accomplish anything. And then when you look out the outside game, is it's not, I wouldn't say it's very weak, but it's not where it should be with the organizing and with the events that's happening. We should be a lot further or a lot more organized. And the reason we can't get there is because we're dividing our time between the blue team and then trying to build up an outside game, which to me, dividing your time doesn't work. So it comes down to, for me, Apollo, and then I know, I don't know if you responded to this tweet, I can't remember, but we'll go to some replies here. But do you, Apollo, feel like, do you feel like this is just another 2016, 2020? Or do you feel like with the march to, go to war with Russia and China, on top of the military budget skyrocketing, on top of the pandemic, on top of unemployment, on top of austerity measures, on top of voting, to break a strike from the squad, on top of, sending money to Ukraine, do you feel like this is a different space where there needs to be an abrupt change, meaning cutting all ties from the Democratic Party?
I think so too. I definitely think we need to cut all ties from the Democratic Party because, some of you guys might know that I worked on AOC's campaign. I worked on several other campaigns, including Ayanna Pressley, including some candidates that didn't win, and even Bernie. But the point is, like, unless we're gonna elect Democrats, progressive Democrats in significant numbers, it's not really gonna make any meaningful change as long as you have the Pelosi's of the world still in charge of the party, because we see how easily AOC buckled to Pelosi's pressure and the rest of the squad followed through. Kirsten Sinema, once again, started off as a anti-war Green Party activist in 2004. And
she did?
Yeah.
That's one thing I did not know. Oh, yeah, I did not know she was a Green Party activist.
I think she was. Yeah, I can double check though, but an anti-war activist in 2004 for sure, and I think it was with the Green Party. But it's just surprising how it is kind of surprising how quickly people buckle to the pressure. So if you want any kind of meaningful change, it has to be outside the Democratic Party, because in order to make any realistic change in the party, you would have to win so overwhelmingly, just completely wipe out the entire Democratic Party team, and then rebuild it, and that is what,
like 100 new members all in the same Congress. You know what I mean? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, think about how unrealistic that is, and it's just it's not possible. We need definitely a brand new approach entirely. So I think the people that are saying, "Oh, we can do both," either are controlled opposition, because if we do both, that's just, like you said, dividing our labor, dividing our effort, in which case we get nothing done. Or they're just incredibly naive, because I was, in that naive camp too for a long time.
You was in that boat, okay.
Yeah, for a long time, that we could get something done. So I believed it for a while, and so I'm not gonna assume everyone who says we can do both is a bad faith actor, but it just comes to me I hear it as a naive kind of thing. It comes from a point of naivete that makes you say you could do both. But yeah, I mean, the unrealistic measures you would need to go through to completely wipe out the Democratic Party clean, that's just not going to happen. And to the conversation that we were having the previous live stream last week, anybody that runs outside the duopoly and poses a serious threat to the duopoly, they will go after hardcore. So before even coming to that point, they're probably going to do everything they can to curb the efforts of anti-establishment uprising, essentially.
Facts. And I'll bring you in, Zoya. And I know you're able to speak now, but you might hear some kids in the background, which is completely fine as long as we can hear you. And now I know you've been talking on permanently being not part of the Democratic Party probably a lot longer than both Jay and I. And anytime I say we're talking about this, Of course, we're not talking about individual local elections. There might actually be like a real communist, like we had a real communist run in the city of Long Beach. He might run under it, but he's actually a real communist. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about more like, you know, more beginning at the state rep level, more beginning at like, you know, governorships like that. That's where I'm more talking about. Because if there's a decent Democrat locally, like for example, if Shama Sawant was listed as a Democrat, I wouldn't necessarily find a particular issue with that. But Zoya, let's bring you in. What say you about and I'll pop my tweet back up there. Do you think it's time, or can you speak to this tweet where I'm talking about this is the time to make a complete break, and that means not having this sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And this actually comes from a conversation I had with Case Study. I won't tell everybody what was said in the conversation, but this stems from a conversation I was having with him about various topics. But what say you, Zoya, about what's your reaction to this topic from this tweet?
Well, I'm really jealous of anyone that still has the opportunity to dem exit, because I never dem entered. I'm registered no party affiliation. I can't believe it's still a topic of discussion in 2024, but thank God most voters are already independent. Independents outnumber Democrats and Republicans, and people who don't vote even outnumber them. So for some people that might still be a thing to consider, but it's such a small segment of the population, although their representation is large because of corporate media, because of things we know through Twitter files. They're overrepresented, but actually not that many people are Democrats population-wise. But yes, if you still have the misfortune of having an affiliation to this party, let me ask you, what have they done for you? Just factually, just materially. I know they might say things you like. I know they might say things you agree with, but they don't back it up with any action. They just pretend that there's nothing they can do about it, whether they're using strategy of rotating villains or just pretending they don't have executive authority to freeze inflation. They have you convinced they can do. So for those of you who understand already that we're in a rigged game, politically, economically, in every possible way, we are not going to check a box to defeat our oppressors. No amount of voting is going to change the system operates. The most we could do is get reforms through ballot initiatives and through some local representatives, ordinances. I've been a part of all of that. But the reason the system even allows for these things is that it does nothing on the grander scale of capitalism and how it works and how it robs us all of our energy and time and life. So they're okay with opposition. They're okay with people voting for Republicans or Democrats. It does not matter to them. Electorally, ultimately, is not going to be our path out of this. We have to be able to leverage something to take. We are not going to achieve liberation. And Malcolm X said, the ballot or the bullet. We've already seen it's failed, but let me just say, general strike before the because I think that that's where our strategy needs to be headed towards. And for that, I'm hoping Dr. Cornel West's run is going to energize people and inspire them and help us organize a general strike where we can withhold our labor in order to get concessions. But ultimately, we cannot engage with this system in good faith. And that's, I love that Dr. Cornel West was calling the corruption out for what it is, for both of these parties being controlled by corporations and money. We know for a fact that lobbyists write the laws in these countries and our representatives don't even bother reading them. They are just actors that are selling us what the corporations want to do to us. And they are not going to allow us to vote our way out. Imagine any scenario where people have power over you, and you know, in Nazi Germany, like, can you imagine someone just voting him out and the press are going, well, oh, you guys don't like me, I guess I'll pack up and leave. That's just not where our focus needs to be at. But having said that, while we are here still living our lives, we have to do what we can. And that is why I engage with ballot initiatives. That's why I want you guys to know that they're doing it right now in Cop City. So they'll tell us to do things their way, right? To play their game, go collect signatures, go show up to city council meetings. And you guys are getting a real life example, and I lived it too, of what happens when we play by their rules. They just changed them. When we submit required amount of signatures, which Matthew Ho did for his run, they just disqualify signatures based on things like you didn't put a period, or it's not legible, or they change the amount of signatures required. You know, it's like you're trying to play a board game with someone that has extra pieces hidden in their pocket. So even if you're winning, they can just rig it in their favor. So
yeah, they got 2 extra jokers in their back pocket. That's what they got. But go ahead, finish your comment.
So I'm of course Dem exit, GOP exit, capitalism exit, entire system exit. What are we doing? Look around you. Look at your conditions. The only party I'm interested in being in solidarity with is the proletariat.
Absolutely. And let me now play this. This is part of the same segment, and it's a clip from Case Study QB. Shout out to Case Study.
Let me get a word.
I'm sorry?
Let me just get a word in real quick about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't even go to you. I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah,
I'll make it real quick. You know, back when I was working on these campaigns for AOC and other progressives, despite how much they're playing ball right now with the Democratic Party, they were targeted and suppressed by the Democratic Party establishment. I remember going to like certain training sessions where they said, okay, when you collect signatures, make sure you don't use 2 different inks, because if they use 2 different inks, they can throw that signature out. Make sure you fill the signature in the box, because if you don't, they'll throw it out. So like they had all these, and I can't even remember like all the details now, but I just remember having like these very strict requirements that if you didn't follow, they'd throw the entire fucking ballot out. So they have, you know, like, it just shows you how rigged the game is against.
They're trying to nitpick in order to they nitpick in order to not have democracy, essentially, like to go against democracy, which is pretty disgusting.
Yeah,
good point. Let's now this video is in 4 clips, so but this is pretty interesting. Cornel West, he gets in a lot of things in this interview. And this speaks to why we should be Dem exiting. Like this interview is all Dem exit right here. So let's listen.
Are you playing it?
Oh, sorry. My bad, everybody.
This is a proletariat network, and we do not have producers.
No, okay, so my button is not clicking. Let me see if I can refresh this. Like I can hit the add. I guess I gotta hold it. No, that's not working too. All right, let me just take it out and reshare it because it's not letting me add it. I clicked it and just assumed it went in, but it did not. So let's see if it works now. All right, so I think that worked. All right, so now it's here. So now let's go back and now let's listen to this interview that they have with Cornel West. I think they thought they had him on a gotcha because they have a graphic with Jill Stein. I hope both of you haven't seen this. I want to get your raw reaction. Look what they try to do. I wish Cornel West knew the numbers to get. I think it was Gary Johnson that ran in the Libertarian Party. I wish he knew because they were larger in this point. But let's listen and you'll get the gist of what I'm saying here. It's in 4 parts. The video or the interview is in 4 parts.
The growing Republican field for president is dominating the headlines, but other candidates are hoping the crowded field paves the way for another choice. The total number of Republican candidates right now stands at 11. 2 Democrats are challenging Biden for the White House, RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. And then there is Cornel West. He announced last week that he's going to run on a third-party ticket. Now he is switching parties. Cornel West joins me now. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. You moved from the People's Party to the Green Party this week, and it makes you much more likely you're going to be on the ballot in a majority of states. Is that why you switched?
Well, I just want to make sure that poor and working people are at the very center of this discussion. But I want to begin by wishing you a happy birthday.
Thank you, sir.
And indeed. But what the problem is, we have a 2-party system that doesn't highlight the precious poor and working people. I'm thinking of Brother Michael and Brother Eddie right now in Rankin County, Mississippi. Neither party speaks to his situation. We got brown brothers and sisters in the borough. We got poor whites in West Virginia. Neither party, both parties tied to Wall Street, Pentagon, both parties so obsessed with the professional managerial class, they lose sight of poor people and working people. The best of America, and that's what my campaign is about, my dear Sister Dana. I want to introduce America to the best of itself, the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Heschel and Dorothy Day and Edward Said and Grace Lee Boggs and Louisa Marino. We've had some major voices concerned about poor and working people, not just here, but the militarism around the world and the victims of that militarism around the world. And so we're going to have a robust conversation in this presidential.
Like, you can see the tics she has when he says certain things. You can see like she has a very, she has a tail in her face, a tic, that she knows he is saying certain things that's uncomfortable for her sponsors. She knows that, and you can see that uncomfortability. But I'll let him finish off here. Let's let him finish his another 30 seconds here.
Political season.
Mm-hmm. You have gotten the question many times. I've heard you being asked about being a spoiler, and you reject that argument, a spoiler for Joe Biden in 2024. But I want to give our viewers a little bit of history. In 2016, Jill Stein was on the ballot for the Green Party, and Donald Trump ended up winning in a nail biter, particularly in some of the key states that you're looking at right now. I'm putting up on the screen just so you know the number of votes that.
So now let's go to the next video where she finishes or continues her point, and that's this video right here. Let's play it. All right, so here's the second part.
In Michigan and Wisconsin compared to Donald Trump's margin there. What's to say, despite your convictions and your argument about the 2 parties not being the way to go, what's to say what I just showed on the screen won't happen with Cornel West on the ballot and not Jill Stein?
I mean, one, that, my dear sister Jill Stein, who got 1.07% of the vote, my dear brother Ralph Nader, who got more, he got about 4%. But you don't look to the weakest candidates as the full explanation as to why you lose. Sister Hillary Clinton lost because she was not a good candidate. She didn't go to Wisconsin, and you know even better than all of us all the various factors that go into why she also didn't lose, not just that one factor. So the idea of putting all the responsibility on the candidates who get the fewest votes compared to the other big 2 is just a way of rationalizing a 2-party system that has become more and more outdated and antiquated, both tied to big money and big.
I'm going to rewind. This is such a great answer that he gives here. And I just like, she thought she had him on a gotcha moment with this graphic, and I'll come back there. But look at this graphic, Jay. Mm-hmm. Now, what doesn't tell the story, like if they had Gary Johnson's numbers here, that would give a better story, and you would see how his numbers were even larger than Jill Stein. So it kind of blows away her whole point. But you see how they try to manipulate the population here, Apollo, and they are leaving out. This is what they classically do with propaganda. They omit information. Go ahead. It looks like you're going to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't vote in 2016 because I wasn't in the country at the time and I didn't have an absentee ballot. So, but I did vote in 2020. I voted for Green Party. If the Green Party, and I regret it now, I kind of voted. I voted for PLS. Bobby Hawkins is a bad guy, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah. We all got food. I got food too. Yeah.
But that implies that if there was no third party on the ballot, that they would vote for some candidate in the duopoly, and that's just not true. If there was no third party, I would have just stayed the fuck home. Like, I'm not voting for anybody in the duopoly. I'm done with that shit. So it starts already under a false assumption that these votes would have gone to somebody else in the duopoly if third parties were an option. And all this is to deflect blame from themselves, because I mentioned earlier that around 9.8 million two-time Obama voters ended up voting for Trump.
That's an astonishing number. I didn't know that number. 9.8 million voted for Obama twice.
Yeah, and then if you just one-time Obama voters, that number goes up. So why the fuck is the Democrat Party losing all those voters? Why aren't you asking those questions? Where's that question? Why is the Democrat Party suddenly gonna lose this many voters? What happened to the Democrat Party where two-time Obama voters ended up voting for Trump? And to I guess CNN's credit, Van Jones did sort of explore this a little bit in 2016, 2017. But that was just one anchor and
one time.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean he brought up the Larry Johnson thing? Is that what you mean? I mean, Larry, I forget the guy who ran. Gary Johnson. I said Larry. Is that what you're talking about, or what do you mean when you say Van Johnson? What do you mean? What did he bring up?
He actually, I can't remember the details now, but he did a show where he spoke to many two-time Obama voters that voted for Trump. He's like, "Why do they do that?"
Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, because the narrative at the time was every Trump voter is a racist, every Trump voter is a homophobe, etc. And these were just regular working class people. They're not racist, they're not homophobic. They just don't want to vote for somebody in a duopoly. And Trump, even if he ran as a Republican, he did say a lot of anti-establishment talking points, which they were enamored by. That's one thing. And then the other thing is notice the difference between the liberal base and the conservative base. When Trump lost in 2020, how many of those guys ended up blaming the Libertarian Party? I mean, I don't explore the Trump base that much, but not many from what I can tell. And in the very beginning, when you showed that status quo clip, you had that guy saying he was saying some typical Fox News Republican talking point bullshit.
Yeah.
But in his mind, he was being substantive. He was saying, "Oh, we're." I can't remember what he said, but it wasn't anything that was shaming the other voters. Like, "Oh, if you only fucking not voted for Libertarian Party, Trump would be in the White House. So fuck you, Libertarian Party voters." He didn't do that shit. Whereas, the liberal base will vilify Green Party voters, vilify third party voters, vilify anybody that does not pretty much submit to the duopoly. So it's a little bit of a disconnect, in my opinion. But those are 2 points I wanted to get at. The first and foremost being that. You imply that third party voters will go into duopoly if third parties are not an option, and
they're trying to say Dana Bash in his video is obviously trying to say, well, if Jill Stein didn't run, those 49,941 votes would have went to Clinton, and that would have pushed her over the edge to win Pennsylvania. That is, but they know that's not true. They know that is not true. But that's not the point. The point is not to say something true. The point is to make the voters think going third party will get us Trump. That's the whole point to me of this segment. They're trying to make Cornel West address that part, is what I think.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much being intentionally manipulative on purpose. Because I mean, I don't know. I wrestle with this back and forth. Do they actually believe their own bullshit, or are they
that is true
intentionally spewing their own propaganda? I think it's a little bit of both. Sometimes it just depends on the situation. In some cases, I think they do believe their bullshit because especially the voter base for sure. In some instances, do believe this, but
the cowbell left is what we call cowbell liberals is what we call them. But Zoya, I see you back with a different icon. Is everything working, or did you change something?
No, she dropped
Oh,
out
she's
again.
gone. She's gone again. So let's finish out the video because he says a lot of better things. We haven't even got to some of the better things he says. Let's go back to where we were, 106, and let him continue.
Both tied to big money and big military, and they don't allow us to speak to 60% of our fellow citizens who are wrestling every day trying to put money on the table and waiting for the next check. And the gross wealth inequality continues, and the military budget continues to expand. We saw this with Brother Biden. But I do want to say this, though, just quickly, that this campaign is also about getting beyond hatred and revenge. You see, I don't hate Brother Trump. I hate his lies and his gangster neo-fascism. I don't hate Brother Biden. I hate his hypocrisy, and I hate his milquetoast neoliberal policy. And we have to be able to engage in a public conversation. It gets beyond eye for an eye and this vicious kind of revenge so that it reinforces the distrust and the paranoia. And that's a immeasurable dimension. That's an invisible dimension of my campaign that's going to set a different kind of tone of what my brother Cliff West called a paradigm shift in American politics. Because I'm a jazz man in the world of politics, and the jazz man is always about improvisation, always about compassion, always about style, and always about a smile.
That's not the end. It feels like that was the end of the clip, but they or end of the interview because he ended on a high note there. But there's actually more he says, and I'm loving how he is absolutely, I guess, dismantling the blue-red game and how it's not delivering for people, and that's key
during the 2020 campaign, similar to what I'm hearing you make.
So the Jill Stein graphic, she couldn't get a gotcha on that. And Zoya, are you back? Is your sound back? Is everything good, Zoya?
Yes, the CIA didn't get me this time.
All right, so you're back. Let me know when you want to chime in. I don't know how much of this interview you've seen, but it's still.
I've seen it. I love everything he's saying.
Absolutely. All right, so let's let him. So she tries to get him a second time. She couldn't get him on the Jill Stein graphic. He had a great answer, like, basically, Hillary Clinton was a flawed candidate. Don't try to act like this small amount of people is what swung why they didn't, she didn't win. It was a lot of other factors. So she tries to get him on something he said in 2020 or did in 2020. And watch, he has another great answer to that.
You made the arguments during the 2020 campaign similar to what I'm hearing you make now when you were backing other candidates, Bernie Sanders to be precise, but you did end up voting for Joe Biden because you said 4 more years of Donald Trump could be worse. Why isn't that the case for you this time around?
Well, I learned from my very dear brother, Bernie Sanders. I have a very profound respect for him, even as we disagree on a number of things. But I'm thoroughly convinced he was treated unjustly. I'm thoroughly convinced that the corporate wing of the Democratic Party will always use the progressive wing as a kind of window dressing. The progressive wing will never triumph. We almost triumphed, and then the neoliberals came together after the call by Obama to Amy and Pete and the others. And therefore, I'm thoroughly convinced that first, pushing back Trump, that's exactly what I tried to do, part of an anti-fascist coalition. But then I began to see you never, ever defeat fascism with a milquetoast neoliberalism that doesn't have vision and passion. The only way you defeat fascism that is coming to America, if we do not fight, is a strong vision, strong passion. And then I'm going, as I've said, to Trump country itself. I'm going to my white brothers and sisters and say, don't scapegoat the most vulnerable, confront the most powerful. There's another way of looking at that.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Forgive me for interrupting, but I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned to my colleague Jake Tapper that you're going to go to Trump country. What specifically do you think that people who are ardent Trump supporters?
So she couldn't get him on that second point. So she hears something. Oh, he says Trump. Let me pull in this blue culture war. So tell us, what are you going to go say to these Trump supporters? And he has another great answer. But before I get to his answer, I couldn't tell. I wasn't watching the screen. Did one of you wanted to chime in? I couldn't tell. I thought I heard something.
Yeah, CJ, I sent something to you in our chat. Which is just
perfect for this segment. And I sent it to you presciently, like as soon as you sent me the StreamYard link, I knew this was going to come up. And I
you mean in on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I'll go get it. Okay.
So
I'll bring that up right after this. Okay, I see what you're saying right now. The Whig Party newspaper thing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll bring that up next.
Yeah, and just that screenshot that we're going to show is going to illustrate that this game has been played for nearly 200 years. That they're always trying to play this fear-mongering card, that we have to choose between two brands of evil, because imagining that something better is possible is just unthinkable and selfish somehow.
And I have it on the screen since you were talking about it. And let me read it. It says, here's a Whig newspaper making this. Oh, this is a screenshot of what you typed. So here's a Whig newspaper making the same argument in 1844. Whigs ran slave owner Henry Clay. That's the Whigs. They ran a slave owner. Democrats ran slave owner James Polk. I remember that. Not because I was there, but I know the history. The Whigs said they were less bad on slavery than Democrats and yelled at everyone with a conscience who voted for the abolitionist Liberty Party. So this essentially is the same thing. The abolitionist Liberty Party is the Green Party. Then you have the Whigs and the Democrats, which is the Republicans and the Whigs. I'm sorry, which is the Democrats and the Whigs. One has a slave owner candidate, the other has a slave owner candidate, slightly better. And instead of voting for the party that's against slavery, that is an abolitionist to slavery, they would rather you pick the lesser of the two evils of the slave owners. And this is such a great point. Now, it is kind of blurred out, but do you know what it kind of refers to in the smaller print here, Zoya?
Oh, it's showing part of the actual newspaper clipping, which it's big enough on my screen. I can read it really quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
Every vote that is thrown for Mr. Bernie is in fact a vote for Mr. Polk. Where have you guys heard that before? No matter how nice the conscience, no matter how good the intent, the man who votes for Mr. Bernie should he view the matter in its right light and true bearing, cannot wash his hands from the guilt of promoting the cause of slavery in the United States.
Wow.
There you go. There you go. This whole a vote for the Green Party is a vote for Trump thing. Nobody just invented that. It's two centuries old, guys. They're always playing this game. So your only conscious way to oppose slavery is by voting for someone that supports slavery less. You can't possibly vote for someone that's against slavery. So if these people are allowed to control our discourse, we would still have slavery today. Because their entire premise is maintaining the status quo and that we have to accept things as they are and never fight for anything better.
This is such a great example, or such a great way, a receipt. Let's use that. This is such a great receipt for people to open people's eyes, because it's one thing to talk about it, but to see. This is from 1844. So we're coming up on, like you said, 2 centuries. We're coming up on 2 centuries that they've been employing the same lesser of two evils. And they try to make it seem like this is a new thing. Remember Jill Biden was trying to act like this is we're going to have to go ahead and vote for, I know you wanted Bernie, but we got to keep Trump out of the office. This is the same argument. So to those, the David Sirotas, the people who still want to advocate this, this lesser of two evils, this is something that we should start to bring up to them. I would love to have those type of people on where I can bring this receipt up and say, this is the same thing. You get what I'm saying? So it's not just like doing the same thing over like twice. This is like doing the same thing over, and I'll let you chime in, Apollo, because I see you shaking your head. This is like the same thing over what in 200 years for that same thing over like 50 times. You get what I'm saying? It's like 50 times every 4 years. 50. Yeah, that's 200 years that we've been doing this. I saw you shaking your head, Apollo. Did you want to chime in?
I mean, I was just shaking my head in agreement. I don't really have anything new to say other than just
all right. So let's finish out the clip and we can finish out the stream. We're getting to the end here. Let's finish out the clip and what he says. He's just destroying the duopoly. He's destroying the Democratic Party too. And his critique doesn't even go as far as mine, because I wouldn't even call Joe Biden is a fascist. He's a fascist. He's the one that's censoring people. He's the one that's marching us to war with 2 nuclear powers. Like, he's the one that's doing all this. He's the one that's still going after Julian Assange. So, he's the one that's trying to lock up his political opponents. So the fascism is coming from the elements of the Democratic Party, like John Mubarak says. And let's finish out these last 2 clips. It's about 3.5 minutes that's left.
Supporters are going to be receptive to in your message?
Well, one, I don't believe.
Let me go back for the context of this question here.
I'm going to my white brothers and sisters and say, don't scapegoat the most vulnerable, confront the most powerful. There's another way of looking at that.
Well, I want to ask you about that. Forgive me for interrupting, but I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned to my colleague Jake Tapper that you're going to go to Trump country. What specifically do you think that people who are ardent Trump supporters are going to be receptive to in your message?
Well, one, I don't believe that they're homogeneous and monolithic. About 1 out of 10 for them, 10 of them voted for Brother Bernie himself. They were looking.
So I thought he was going to say, because it's to your point, Jay, you mentioned this. You don't have to chime in here, but you mentioned how you said 9 million or close to 10 million double Obama voters voted for Trump. And Cornel West is bringing up the same point. Like, these aren't monoliths. Like, because she's trying to present, what are you going to do to go talk to these trades? Well, they're not all the same. And he's making the point, some of those voters were actually former Bernie Sanders supporters. So let's let him finish, and then we'll make our last comments.
Looking for an alternative because they see through the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party, talking about justice on the one hand, but tied to big money on the other. And so I want to go back to those folk and recognize when I see a Trump supporter, I don't see a stereotype. I see a human being, many of them who are wounded, and too many of them follow a neo-fascist.
He is saying too many good things. They literally thought they were going to bring him back on for him to fumble, and he is just not fumbling. He has a great answer for every,
and that's where the legacy of Martin.
For every sort of thing she brings up, and I think she struck out, and she's just going to give up at this point. This clip is a little less; is about a minute and 17 seconds. Then we'll close.
A Piper rather than an alternative, and that's where the legacy of Martin King and Heschel and Dorsey Day. How do you bring poor and working people together across race, across gender, in such a way that they all begin to provide a serious challenge to the powers that be? It's like a jazz band, my dear sister, like Bill Evans on the piano with Miles Davis' quintet. He's a white brother. He ain't a white ally. He's in the band. Well, this campaign is about the band. And the band is going to bring all these different kind of folk together. And we're not singing the same song. No. We're not playing the same notes. No. But we are raising our voices in such a way that we're keeping the focus on something bigger than us. For Martin King, it was a beloved community. And for us, it is deep democracy. It is empowering poor and working people, not just here, but around the world in terms of U.S. foreign policy and pulling back on the militarism around the world.
Well, I hope to be Penny Lane and one of your trips and go out with the band and see how you play out there, particularly.
You see the smiles, you see the uncomfortableness, and I'm going to let both of you chime in. They are definitely afraid of Cornel West. They are definitely afraid. And I'll let both of you sort of chime in on any final thoughts on any of the clips or anything else you wanted to to say on the segment before we begin to close out here? Whoever wants to go.
I'll go. So just to bring it back to that screenshot, which I've been posting, and I hope everyone starts posting, because we're not taught this history in school, and people might not know that this is a game that's been played. Every single election has been the most important one of our lifetime. I want us all to say that we are not going to play this game anymore. Why on earth should we ever vote against our interests? It is absolute madness, and they are trying to scare you into it because fear is all they got, not policies, not actions, just scaring you that if you don't do this, something worse will happen. And meanwhile, they always push through horrible policy that harms all of us. And that's exactly what's happening right now with the precedent being set with Trump. Obviously, you don't have to like him or you can love him. It really doesn't matter. But either way, they use these instances to constantly increase surveillance and limit our power. Look at 9/11 and the Patriot Act and all of the power that they are able to circumvent Congress now to declare war. They've relabeled it. They call it active military action, and all of this loophole language. But at the end of the day, both parties are taking our rights away and making our living conditions worse. And that should be the only thing that we're afraid of. Leaving things as they are, not taking it to a fight, because these two parties work hand in hand. They play off each other, and they're always going to tell us that we only have to choose one, that we have to quote unquote grow up, that it's infantile somehow to fight for your interest, to fight for what you believe in, that the grown-up thing to do, that the pragmatic thing to do is to vote for your own suffering. It is completely irrational. We have got to stop these people from getting away with it, from pushing these propaganda talking points, from convincing people that will happen. And I'm already seeing it as election season is approaching, and it's going to kick really into high gear online and probably at the dinner table with some of your family members. But we ultimately have to take back our power, and our power is in our labor, which means that we have to be organizing towards a general strike and not stake everything on elections and vote our own conscience in elections and get back to forcing politicians to earning our votes. They are not entitled to them.
Well said, Zoya. Zoya is love. And let's go to Apollo for your final words on the segment.
Yeah. So to piggyback off of what Zoya said, what has the Democrat Party, what has Joe Biden actually done that's different than what Donald Trump did? Because people said you can't vote for Trump because you'll start World War III. And look what's happening right now. He's literally instigating two nuclear powers at once. Literally, the two worst countries to instigate are the very countries that he's instigating. And he deported more people than Donald Trump did. And Obama in his final year deported more people than Trump did his first year. It's just that, because of Trump's rhetoric, Obama's crimes were brushed under the rug. So when the core policies come into play, these parties are not different at all. They just give some lip service about some social issues and that's about it. But when it comes to actually waging war, actually deporting undocumented immigrants and whatnot, they're the same. And if anything, the trajectory is getting consistently worse. The military budget is higher than it's ever been. The climate, what is it? What was that legislation before?
Inflation reduction.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, opened up I think 600 million acres for offshore drilling. Was it offshore drilling or was it land drilling? One of those.
It was land. It was a land, government lands or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and that was Joe Biden. So, as far as actually saving our planet, actually destroying the establishment, actually abolishing capitalism. None of these parties are going to really do shit for us. And Joe Biden has literally given nothing for us to vote for. Cornel West actually gave Joe Biden credit about cutting child poverty in half, which I personally don't agree with them on that because
Me either.
because as and a lot of people aren't really talking about this, but the increasing wars with Russia and with China, the global push for de-dollarization, that we're going to feel the effects of that here at home. Like inflation is going to go out of control. The price of food and energy is going to go out of control. So whatever poverty reduction that Joe Biden, whatever poverty reduction that Joe Biden did is going to be undone through his other policies. And nothing's forcing him to do this. Like he could, well, I mean, his puppet masters are, but he could stop if he wanted to, or if his puppet master wanted to, but he's literally actively making things worse. So any good he's doing is being immediately undone in a matter of time.
That is such a good point. And like you said, in the Inflation Reduction Act is a kind of an example of that, of how because they gave away land, because they like to say the Inflation Reduction Act has climate stuff in it, but the climate stuff is kind of washed away by all the bad stuff that it does to climate that's also in it, which you were just speaking to. But I think that's it. We're gonna go ahead and draw down the stream here. Now you had a job interview in LA. You're not in LA just for the job interview. Are you were already?
He's slowly moving here.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's it right there. So we're gonna have to hiccup. That's what I was getting to. I didn't want to put it out there until you actually said it. So, but that's gonna be great. So I'm so happy about that.
Yeah.
So tell us
and whatnot.
Say again.
So I can help with the Long Beach chapter.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. That's gonna be great. So stay tuned with RBN. We're gonna be doing a lot of great things in the future. Like again, we're only 2 years old. I'm just to look back what we're gonna be at 5 years from now, or at 5 years old is gonna hopefully just moving in the right trajectory to be in the right space and helping a lot of people. But anything, I'll start with you, Apollo. Anything in appearances or anything you want to shout out before I put you in the back, and then I'll go to Zoya. Anything you want to shout out?
You're so lucky they're letting me have the final word today, Jay.
Yeah, I can't really. I'll do anything, so thank God. I mean, I got really nothing to shout out. That's usually Zoya's apartment. I don't want to upstage her because anything I got to shout out is probably going to be something I heard through Zoya anyway. So,
right on. All right, Zoya. Anything you want to shout out? Any upcoming activist events or anything that you want to bring a light to? Go ahead.
Right now, I'm extremely focused on Stop Cop City. You guys can go to stopcopcity.org. There's a variety of different actions that you can take, even from the comfort of your own living room. I know we talk about change, and it's sexy to talk about it and scream revolution and scream change and talk about how things should change, but we need action. So I would like to challenge all of you to actually move off of the comment section and into organizing, whether it's in your communities or in even local elections or mutual aid or community gardens. There is a million different things that you could be doing, and we need you. We all need you to actually start doing something. I know life is challenging. I know life is hard, but even if you can set 5 minutes aside to go to stopcopcity.org, find an action that you are comfortable with, because there are a lot of corporations that are funding this project, and you can just simply boycott the corporations that are involved, call out the corporations that are involved. I mean, heck, there's people just putting graffiti under the Bank of America logos by ATMs saying under Bank of America funds Cop City, so that people know. So not that I'm endorsing that, But I'm just saying, you all have options. And I really would love to see people putting in work and putting in effort, and not all of us just sitting around and discussing what can be done and what should be done. And as far as Dr. West, what Jay brought up, making that comment, Dr. West in general is very loving and diplomatic, and that is part of his gift in organizing. That's how he reaches people. So he tends to give people credit before calling them out. It is just his style. And I know a lot of us were frustrated with Bernie for calling Joe Biden his good friend and not dragging the establishment, because that's definitely what the moment called for. But just to prepare you guys, this is Dr. West's approach. So he is going to be approaching people with this loving kind of rhetoric before holding them accountable. That is just what he does. But what I love about Dr. West is that he said he's going to come back on RBN every single month, and that he wants to be held accountable, and that he's already demonstrating to us that he's open to feedback, because he's already shifted to the Green Party based on the feedback that he got from all of us. So to him right now, it seems like our input and our voice matters. And that's all I want to focus on. If there's something that you see that you don't like, or you want him to shift on, then go ahead and let him know. This is not the time to cancel people. It is not going to serve us. It is not going to help us, because Dr. West is going to inspire people, and we can use that energy to get more done. There are already activists on the ground. There are major strikes. Some of the largest nationwide strikes are about to launch that are already happening. Those people need strike funds. Those people need signs. Those people need food while they're on the line. There is a lot of work to be done. And I love the fact that Dr. West is going to bring solidarity and energy to the movement and get us all going. Because ultimately, we can scream into the ether online, and we can get likes, and we can be right, and we can stay in our echo chambers and die a slow death under this capitalist regime. But in order for us to actually create change, that means all of you, anyone watching, listening, all of you need to be contributing effort. It cannot just be me. It cannot just be CJ or Nick. And the expectations are so high for RBN to just be everything. I'm always reading comments where like, RBN should do this and RBN should do this. How about you guys? What are you going to do? Because RBN's just a group of a few people trying to do something. They're not perfect. They're all growing and learning in real time with you. But what are you going to do? Why don't you tag RBN and some things that you guys are doing in your local community? Help all of us get inspired. Take some pictures, whether you're just feeding the hungry or helping someone from being evicted, whatever it may be, even just hugging someone that's having a hard day. It doesn't matter. Post those clips, take those pictures, share it with all of us, because that kind of energy shows people that they're not alone and that change is possible. And even if it's small, you still make a difference. So please do not focus all your attention on this electoral circus, which is going to keep happening every 4 years to distract us, and get involved where you live. Help your family, help your community, help the society that's around you, and don't expect anyone to come along and save you or build something for you. That is on you, and it is on all of us. Love and solidarity to everyone. Make someone's day better today.
Thank you. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. I will put both of you, Apollo, aka Jay, and Zoya, in the back again. Thank you so much for joining. I'm sure both of you will be back either next week or maybe the week after. I try to be more consistent with bringing on some of the same guests that people like, and Jay and Zoya is one of them. Anthony. Professor Anthony is another one. He was driving. He would have been here. He was driving. And also Kit happened to be driving somewhere too. He would have also been here. Now there is another action that's happening in my area in Los Angeles, a labor action that's happening. I'm sure Zoya knows this. I'm gonna play this video, but this is hotel workers will be going on strike. They voted on the 22nd. There is it's next Thursday, right? Yeah, on the 20th. So next Thursday, a week from today, there is a direct action they're going to be doing that I'm going to try to attend, or some RBN person will be there if it's not me. But this is a big event that they're doing before their contract expires on the 30th. And I think it's Unite Here 11. Yeah, that's one of the unions that's part of these hotel workers. And this is right. So this is like 15,000 in LA. If we're talking LA, we're talking around roughly about 15,000. So let's watch this clip, and we're gonna go ahead and I was looking for my graphic because we already have a graphic for the event we're gonna be doing on the 22nd. But let me toss up this before that. Here, make sure we have this event this Saturday. Outreach at revblacknetwork.com is the email if you want to help, if you want to come down and videotape it for us so we can live stream it. Or if you want to come down, you got some tables that we can use to put the food on. You can, like some folding tables, you can bring that. Or if you just want to come and lend your hand to help lift some of the stuff and carry the clothes or something like that, give us an email shout out. And where's that flyer? I'll put that back up there again for you to see. And so far we've raised $800. The target was $500 and we got $800. So thank you for all of those that have donated. And now let's play this clip. It's very informative, but this is what's happening in my backyard. There's a lot of stuff actually happening in LA, and I'm so happy Apollo's out here, and I'm so happy Zoya is out here too, because we have UPS coming up, the FedEx pilots, if it's not up already, it's coming like this month. UPS next month. That's 350,000 employees. Then we have the ports. I don't know if you heard, there's been work stoppages on the ports. That's right here in Long Beach. There's the port of Long Beach and the port of LA. Does something like 40% of our goods come through those two ports. So there's a lot going on in California. And then we got this too. And this is not even all of it. So it's a lot of labor action happening in California. California is going to be a pivotal place for labor movement. So we have to mobilize. But let's listen to this here.
Imagine having to commute so much that you can only get about 3 hours of sleep at night. That's just a day in the life for Brenda Mendoza, a hotel worker in LA.
We make sacrifices for our families. At the end of the day, we're the ones who are, doing the job. And it doesn't get easier.
Brenda is one of 15,000 hotel workers who recently voted to authorize the largest strike in the U.S. hotel industry in 50 years.
People are angry. They're angry that they can't pay their rent. They're angry that they have to move further and further away. And they're angry that they're working harder than ever and they're not making enough to survive.
I work at the JW Marriott. I'm a uniform attendant, and I've been working there for about 13 years, give or take, 13, 14 years. I was born and raised in Koreatown, living in a single, and then our rent started increasing, so we ended up looking for another apartment, something that we were able to afford, and little by little, it's been forcing us to move further out. My commute used to be like 10 minutes, and now it's become like 2 hours and a half in the afternoon and 1 hour and a half in the mornings.
To save money on gas and car insurance, Brenda drives with her whole family in one car, and that means an even longer commute. They usually leave the house at 3 a.m. and don't get back until 9 p.m., which doesn't leave much time for sleep.
Sleeping, give or take 2 hours and a half, 3 hours. is max during the week. Sometimes I don't even take my lunch. Those 30 minutes that's supposed to be my lunch, I take them to try to, take a nap.
More and more workers are having to double up, 2 or 3 families into one apartment. Others have to move further and further.
This is just, I gotta say, this is so upsetting. Like, I planned this to be the closeout video, but this is so upsetting what's happening here. Like, people can't sleep. You can't sleep to even go to work? And they have to, they don't have the money to have multiple cars, can't afford multiple cars with gas. So with the gas prices, so they all have to just get up and leave at 3:30 in the morning. And then we got people talking about let's try the Democratic Party. This is California. So this is happening in California, supermajority state for Democratic Party. This is happening in Los Angeles, supermajority Democratic city council, governor, Democrat. There's no difference between the parties. Let's listen and close out on this. This is so very upsetting. My bad. Hold on 1 second. There is 2 super chats. Let me make sure I read those before I close this. A former president got indicted for political reasons. How can a left movement thrive? They call Biden a Marxist. This will be used against us. That is such a great point. Named My Taco. Thank you for that super chat. That's a great point, though. But I love the name. Abiding 71 again with the super chat or super sticker love. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm gonna pop myself back out and I'm gonna let this video play.
Further away to places like California City, Lancaster, Barstow, I've heard.
And all of this is happening while the hotel industry in LA is booming.
There is no other place that will host both the World Cup and the Olympics back to back. The hotel industry is growing. There are 90 development projects in the works. Billions of dollars is being spent on the expansion of LAX. This industry is extraordinarily prosperous.
They can't afford it, to increase their wages, to pay their employees more.
Workers are asking for a $5 raise up front and a $3 raise each subsequent year of the 3-year contract. But the hotels aren't coming to the table.
The hotel is not bargaining with the workers. They're just not.
It is not acceptable in the middle of the greatest hotel boom in the history of Los Angeles that the industry would fail to even put a penny forward, not even a penny, in terms of a counter proposal.
On June 8th, hotel workers voted overwhelmingly to authorize a strike.
If I'm a tourist coming in July, I would be thinking about remaking my plans, because when you show up, you will not have clean rooms, you will not have food, you will not have banquets, you will not have any services. I would suggest that everyone take a break from LA on July 4th weekend. What those workers do is make this city run and make the most important industry in our city prosperous beyond all imagination. And right now, it's our turn.
What we're asking is something that we really deserve, because we worked hard for it. Asking everybody to stand by us, with the strike, it's a huge thing.